All right, guys, welcome in here on a Monday. It's another edition of the Happy Hour Tip-Off Show. It is powered by WagerTalk.com. Joe Raineri alongside Ralph Michaels. All about college hoops, guys. What a weekend it was in college basketball. What is up is down. What is left, what is right. 25 more games here today to try and sort through, Ralph. But the story of the weekend, top 25 teams again. Many of whom going down in flames against unranked opponents. A lot of away teams just can't seem to pull it together. Duke loses twice in a week. Auburn loses twice in a week. I can't figure this season out, Ralph. It's mind-blowing. It really is.
Again, it's the road. Those good teams aren't losing at home. They're losing on the road, and that's the difference is, although, well, I shouldn't say that because we mentioned Duke losing at home, but Louisville's a top 10 team. And
right.
So, it's not as if, though, you got upset against someone. The Duke loss, I look at them and, you're still, it's not the same Duke team it's been in the past. You have three freshmen and a sophomore in the starting lineup, and it's not the freshmen that are going to go 1, 2, and 3 in the draft like last year. So it just makes a difference that, we see the talent is much closer this year than it's been in the past. It's, I think probably my biggest surprise team, at this point in time is Rutgers. And they just dominated Minnesota at home. When they're at home, they could beat any team in the Big Ten. Yep. They are a team right now that, I consider a top 25 team. Your losses were all away from home. The Illinois loss, you lost by 3. You lost by Bonaventure early. And then Pittsburgh and Michigan State. Steve Pikiel has them playing just great defense. And it's just a bunch of guys playing well. So, again, clearly my biggest surprise is the Scarlet Knight, and it's good to see for Big Ten basketball. Hell, right now, Joe, I think there'd probably be 12 teams in the Big Ten that would make the tournament if the season ended now.
And not for nothing, Ralph, but one of my big plays over the weekend I don't know what happened to this team, Ralph. What happened to Ohio State? We had conversations to start the year here about how good this team was going to be. I mean, we were talking about this close, number 1, number 2 team in the country, and the wheels have absolutely fallen off here. And, again, on the road in Penn State, I know they've had some injuries, it's just been a mess at Ohio State. How did they pull themselves out of this?
It's turnovers. I mean, you look and they're now 1-5 their last 6 for a team that was rated in the top 10, maybe even top 5. I don't remember how high they got, but you look at their turnovers, and they are number 335 in turning the ball over. I mean, that's as bad as it gets. And C.J. Walker's a junior, DJ Carlton a freshman. He has his stuff, but it really is just one of those mysteries because you watch them and they're not the same team. What changed? What happened? Well, I mean, not that much changed. They lost. Kyle Young didn't play a couple games, but he's back in. You look at the starting lineup. Walker started 17. Weston Kaliba started 18. Muhammad 15. Kyle Young 16. So it's not as if though you had 18 different guys starting all these games. Each starter has missed maybe 1 or 2 games, but it's the same nucleus. Right now they're sitting at 12-6, and I gotta believe they'll turn it around. Part of it is, it started with West Virginia. West Virginia exposed their turnover problems. Mm-hmm. Then you play another physical team in Wisconsin that can pressure you and you turn the ball over. Then your other losses are on the road to Maryland, Indiana, Penn State. So some of it may be Ohio State that bad. Some of it may be that Maryland and Penn State are that good, and they're on the road.
Interesting stuff over that weekend. Boy, there were definitely some head scratchers, some head turners. There were also some big, shall we say, performances across the board there, Ralph, here with some of these guys, both Saturday and Sunday. And, some of these guys, I mean, Isaiah Stewart also, what a game that was against Oregon over the weekend in overtime.
Yeah, it clearly was. And you take a look at those win-losses, only Bonton at Washington State and Marion Jackson for Toledo over Akron, those performances were in wins. So, yeah, 25 points, 19 rebounds, and 5 blocks. What is Manute Bol back or is Taco Fall back?
Yeah.
I'm not sure that.
Right.
So, it just shows you. And 5 blocks in that zone. A lot of people don't drive against Washington because of the Syracuse zone, but I didn't catch that game. But I'm interested now to go back and look at that number especially.
Yeah, it was crazy. Of course, Pritchard again comes through in the end. But there is even LSU had a great. Ole Miss had a great game against LSU. Took them to the wire there. Brian Tyree, 36 points, 3, 4, and 2. Javon Greed, George Mason over Richmond, and Washington State all of a sudden won't go away, Ralph.
Yeah, again, an improved Big Ten and an improved Pac-12 as well. It's, I think they're 12-6, 12-7 now, something like that. And yeah, Kyle Smith was a damn good coach at San Francisco, and it was a good hire. Smith went from Columbia to San Francisco, now to Washington State. He has them playing at a much faster tempo. And he's got a junior and a senior at guards, Bonton and Robinson, and Ellaby, obviously their go-to scorer. So, they're one that's going to be, they're going to be in the mix if they can play 500 the rest of the way out in Pac-12 ball. But, the wins, I just don't see them coming here. They go to Colorado, they go to Utah, then they got to face the Arizonas at home, and then Washington. And the schedule really toughens up for them. We do have to remember that they've played the 255 schedule. So the schedule is weak, which gives them some of their success. Beating Oregon, sweeping the Oregons at home is obviously a huge boost. But I think we're going to see them fade a little bit, especially on the road coming up here.
And, of course, some of the ATS big ones over the weekend, both Saturday and Sunday. Obviously, the covers there at the very top there. And some of the overs, too. You saw an overtime there in Murray State. Ralph, some of these games over the weekend, one we were just talking about, we were laughing, was yesterday with UCLA and Cal going at it. They went 41 points under, and they didn't even score 100 points. The game was at 131. That total of 50-40 was the final score there. It was kind of laughable, was it not?
Well, not if you like defense, or is it? Do you like defense or bad offense?
Right.
Yeah, I think with those, it's a little of both. I mean, Cal's playing good defense, but we know they lack the offense. You look at the largest covers from Saturday, and look at those underdogs. William and Mary had been playing great. I had been on William and Mary a couple times. And all 3 dogs not only won outright, but covered by 29.5 or more. So some big upset wins there.
Of course, we got plenty of stuff coming on here today too, Ralph. Here, 25 games on the slate, so that means there's going to be plenty of opportunities for guys to be able to dive in here today. We'll start before we take a look at the markets at some of the trends and angles that you pulled up for today's action.
Yep. As I'm clicking over to them, there's a game going on right now as we film. Yale did not cover against Howard. I will say that, again, it's weird when you play on Martin Luther King Day at noon Eastern, and Yale, you have to go on the road. But going into that game, I will just say, we talk about trends and angles, and sometimes they line up and you think, oh, that's an automatic winner. But, it's built into the line. Yale was laying 20 points for a reason because they were 14-2 against the spread their last 16 games. And Howard coming into the game was, had a negative 3-15 against the spread. So 29-5 ATS in that matchup. And the situation where only 5 of those had covered. Howard does cover that game. Winthrop, 10 straight covers on the road. They have played very well. They're playing Radford. They're a 1.5-point dog. And when I look at their covers, they're consistent. They, despite having an average line of a 6-point dog, Winthrop's average score in those 10 games, 74-71. So they're plus 3 points per game, getting 6 points per game. North Carolina, AT&T, 9 straight overs. North Texas, 11-1 ATS. Now this is one of those situations where clearly North Texas playing great, 11-1, and they're hosting Rice today. They're laying 13. But I'll tell you what, for them to go on the road, beat Southern Miss like they did, I was on them, pull the upset against La Tech. La Tech was really the challenge there. That was the best team they're going to face for a while. That they were off a 1-point war. So despite North Texas being 11-1, I'm letting you know why I wouldn't play on that trend coming off the war they did. North Carolina, Old Dominion, 7-22 over-under. That's an early game, I believe, today against Charlotte. And Wagner, 4-15 over under their last 19 games.
Interesting. And definitely some games here today, Ralph, that people are going to be taking a look at and are certainly moving in the market. West Virginia pops out at home, taking on Texas. West Virginia losing to just a horrific Kansas State team, and they got blown out there, Ralph, giving up all sorts of points, not usually what we're used to seeing from West Virginia. Texas in a game against Kansas that they lost, but opened up as a double-digit favorite for West Virginia at home, and it's moved all the way down to 8.5 in a lot of places here. It certainly feels like a bounce-back situation for West Virginia.
Yeah, I agree. Clearly a play that, you look at their losses there are on the road. But I do have, and again, this is just my opinion of why I can't use them. West Virginia, we know, is an elite defensive team, but they're still only shooting 43% in conference play. So despite having that defense and being at home off a loss, it's just tough for me to lay that many points with a team that is shooting that poorly overall. So, again, I agree. It's going to be the big mover, obviously, because there's only, while there's a bunch of SWAC games and extra games,
right?
There's a lot of people that only play the regular rotation, and there's only 6 of those games. So, the West Virginia obviously is going to be one of the big movers.
Yep, and might as well take a look here at some of these primetime games that we've got here, Ralph, on the board, because those two are certainly getting a lot of the other action towards them. And Virginia, North Carolina State, obviously going to be one that continues to have money come towards Virginia. And opened up at -4. I'm seeing -5s now pretty much across the board. And believe it or not, the total is going up, Ralph. Opened up at 116. We're starting to see 118s out there. So they're actually pushing the total up in a Virginia game. What the hell happened?
Well, I don't know. The way NC State's playing defense, I would certainly be leaning the other way. So not a move that I agree with.
Yeah, a little bit strange in that one, as is, let's face it, Oklahoma-Baylor, too, our other featured game, guys. You're talking about Baylor laying double digits, coming off a comeback win in Henry Iba there in Stillwater, taking out Oklahoma State, and just a lot of depth, a lot of good shooting. They got some athletes there. Baylor is definitely a team, whether it's home or away, has been proving their worth. Taking on a Oklahoma team here, OU, Ralph, double digits here, it looks like, for Baylor, and it continues to just hover around that 9.5 or 10 mark here. You got to feel one way or the other. It's because it's 135. The total has stayed the same, but but it's still a double-digit Baylor spread here at home against OU.
Now, people look at Baylor and they look at the score and they say, oh, no, they went to Oklahoma State and they won and covered. Boy, they needed a huge run at the end of the game. They were not only not covering that game, they were losing that game. So I don't know what the exact run was. It was probably 12-2 or 14-2 for them to get into the position to win and cover. So, that's a tough spot. You go there and you expect to win, and now you're back, and they have it's a weird dynamic because this is a weird week in the Big 12 because you have Oklahoma today, and then they have the Big 12 SEC Challenge, and they're going to go play Florida on the road. So, does that keep them focused? Does that have them peeking ahead to Florida? You just never know. Oklahoma's a team to me that, at the offense, you score 83 against TCU. Yeah, that was at home. But then you score 52 against Kansas and 68 against Iowa State. So the offensive consistency just isn't there for Oklahoma.
Yep, no, it's not. But again, it is a double-digit Baylor situation, one way or the other, Ralph. So, with as many extra added games here, and you said, some SWAC games, everything else along those lines on the board, you do have a couple of big conference games up. Is there a dog or something on this card here that you looked at today that you liked?
I looking at just the 6 games, there isn't. I look at NC State and the way Virginia's been playing. We're going to be talking about that game in a little bit. There's some injury concerns there. I think West Virginia wins. North Texas, I'm not going to play against a 13-pointer. Baylor, I'm not going to not pick them to win. And
right.
Portland State, Weber State's probably the only potential, but that line's pretty close to where I had it. So, no dog on the board for me from on a short Monday card.
Right, exactly. It really is tough. A lot of chalk on the board here today, guys, which appears to be, I don't feel confident enough in any of them to say that I'd be willing to go against who the favorites are. But you did mention, of course, this Virginia game here, Ralph, and this is another one of those. You had mentioned it. North Carolina, NC State has not exactly been a pushover team for folks here, and Virginia getting an awful lot of love here at this particular point. Still not the team that we thought they once were, but NC State is 7-2 on the road against the number in their last 9 games. So we know Virginia has struggled. They've only covered in 4 of their last 15. I don't know if that's because the market still not adjusted to this not being what we remember Virginia to be, but either way, it's an interesting number at home for a Virginia team to cover here.
Yeah, well, you have the national championship hangover effect. There's no question you're going to be laying more, and I still think, to me, from what I've watched of Virginia, they still play enough defense that at home I am not going to fade him in that home role.
Right. It's tough to get. It really is tough to go against them there. I'm interested to see that the number going up, though. I never trust an over in a Virginia game. Makes it very, very difficult. As does the Baylor game too. Another one. It just makes it very difficult to look at and go that I'm going to go against anybody other than Baylor. I will say it's interesting though in that Oklahoma State game. They did the old Syracuse trick there. They did the same thing that Washington did to them early on in the season, Ralph, where they ended up losing. They dropped the old 2-3 zone on them, Oklahoma State, and it kind of confused Baylor in the beginning. They just didn't know how to react, and then all of a sudden, boom, we got ourselves in the second half, some adjustments that came out, and then that was it. They kind of just put the pedal to the metal and eliminated the deficit and took down Oklahoma State. So they're starting to learn and they're starting to evolve as a team. This Baylor is a very for real team here. I know a lot of people had question marks, but this team is no joke here. A lot of depth, a lot of great shooting, and they can play some defense.
Oh, no question. I mean, I have them in my top 5. I really, don't have an order back and forth that I look at it. And, it's a young team. You've got, sophomore guards, and those sophomore guards are just getting better and better as the season progresses. So, they're a powerful offensive rebounding team. They don't turn the ball over. the defense is what we know that Scott Drew has with his Baylor Bears on defense. And, you look at them, they have one guy over 6'5". You have, Gillespie's 6'9", I think. So they're not a big team, but they just seem so long, and they're never out of position in defense.
Yeah, it's amazing, guys. So some interesting games to keep an eye on here today. Of course, getting ready for a big week in college hoops. I know Ralph over at WagerTalk.com. I know it's a big night in the NBA as well, and I'm sure you've got. I know you got a couple of plays up over at WagerTalk, don't you?
I have an afternoon NBA 4-star, and I have a SWAC game that I posted at night, but I'm going to just give it out here as a best bet since I didn't have a dog and it was a light card. I don't often, I keep numbers on the SWAC and the added extra rotation board teams, but I don't follow them as close. So there may be an occasional play I use, but I really don't use many. Well, I had extra time this morning with the light card and started going in and doing some SWAC reading just to be caught up. And Prairie Review caught my eye. They're number 307175. They're laying 3 to Jackson State. Prairie View played a much tougher non-conference schedule than Jackson State, number 55 compared to number 125. And we've talked about how the SWAC needs money, Joe, and goes on the road. Prairie View didn't play their first D1 foe at home until January 4th.
Okay.
So, they're tested on the road. They have outright wins at UTSA and Grambling. They're 10-4 ATS. They have 2 all-SWAC candidates, and they have 3 players in double figures. So when you go on the road, a lot of times if you have one superstar and he's cold or they shut them down, you struggle. But they have multiple scores. They have the much better defense. Their defense is their defense is the best unit on the court, no question. And Jackson State likes to put pressure on their opposite opponents, but Prairie View has all 5 starters are seniors, so very mature, a deep team that is experienced. So I don't think the pressure hurts them. So I don't go by my play tonight. This is it. It's again 307175 Prairie View A&M -3.
Yeah, you know what? If I'm looking at this Baylor game here too tonight, guys, I would probably almost. I would fade Oklahoma in the first half. I would take Baylor there, laying 4.5, 5 points in the first half to go into halftime with the lead. Oklahoma has not been great in the first half so far this year. They tend to come out a little slow on the road. I anticipate Baylor at home to kind of take it to them early there and certainly be able to go in the second half with the lead. So I would lean definitely Baylor Bears first half in this game here tonight, Ralph.
And, let me look it up. The Baylor Bears. Hey, guys, for those that don't know, go to WagerTalk.com or SportsMemo.com. Right along the top toolbar, one of the best live line feeds you'll have. It has the percentages. It has first half lines, second half lines, money lines. And you'll see that Baylor pretty much across the board. You're laying 5.5. Just FYI, that total 63. The Virginia game, Joe, first half total 54.5.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, that's going to be about right. Going to take them a little. Both teams can play some defense there. It's amazing that number continues to go up. But opportunities, guys. WagerTalk.com. You can get over there, grab some plays, do what you got to do, make it a profitable Monday, and then of course college hoops back with a full slate again tomorrow. We'll have you covered, getting you ready for the day. But certainly make sure you head over to WagerTalk.com. NBA plays, college hoops plays, ready to go here on a $9 Monday, Ralph. So it'll be a fun card watching a couple of these games tonight, and then we'll get back tomorrow and get to do it all over again, my friend.
Yep, tomorrow we'll get to talk about Butler Villanova and Florida LSU and Texas Tech TCU. So a lot of good games. So always exciting. Georgia, I know Georgia. You're a fan of Georgia.
Yeah,
and with Anthony
Georgia.
Edwards, they go into Kentucky. We'll see what happens there.
And we'll see revenge of sorts there, so to speak. Kentucky waxed them on their own court there a couple of weeks ago. So a lot ahead, guys. Bottom line, it starts with getting in the corner. Head over to WagerTalk.com. $9 Mondays. Grab Ralph's big NBA play as well here tonight. Go make yourself a couple of bucks here, and then come back and join us tomorrow. We'll get you ready once again for everything that is college basketball. So, Ralph, good luck with your plays, man. We'll talk to you again tomorrow.
Joe, talk to you in 23.